What's going on, guys? This is King Orange here, back again for another video. And here today, guys, I'm going to be doing a kind of informal review of Avengers Endgame. It's not going to be like a traditional review where, I edit everything and stuff. I really don't want to worry about that. I'd rather just make it more of just giving my overall thoughts, and I'll probably change the image depending on the topic I'm talking about. At least I hope I do. A lot of it's just depending on time. I've been having a busy month. But yeah, with that out of the way, I guess we can get started. I guess before discussing Endgame, I should probably talk about what I thought about Infinity War from last year. I thought Infinity War was a fantastic movie. I actually gave it a 10 out of 10 because to me, I felt like Infinity War was truly a masterpiece, a masterpiece movie, in that there were so few flaws with the movie that it's like the flaws were like so minute and so easy to ignore that it's like you could hardly consider them flaws. Like they were only just minor things that would come down to just nitpicking. And to me, it truly made Avengers Infinity War fantastic. The way it characterized all the characters, the way it actually made Thanos both intimidating but also compelling and in some ways even sympathetic as a villain, and making him the main character of that movie. Which, make no mistake, he is the main character. He has the most screen time and is really the main character that goes through an arc in that movie. And at the end of the movie, he wins. So it's like, and it ended Infinity War on this big note where, I'm not gonna lie, that combined with the audience reaction really kind of made watching Infinity War my first time probably the best movie experience I could ever hope to have. And yeah, I mean, that's just how great things were. So now we're at a year later with Avengers Endgame. I saw it the day it came out. I didn't get to see the pre-shows just because I got busy with schoolwork and SAT and that sort of thing, and that sucks. But I got to see it on the 26th when it came out. I went and saw it with my best friend, the same best friend that I saw Infinity War with my first time. So we both got to see the movie, get our fresh thoughts in and stuff. And now I'm at the point where now I have seen the movie 3 times. And I'm planning on seeing it a fourth this coming weekend. So, I mean, I've seen the movie 3 times, and I think I've kind of cemented my thoughts of the movie. So, what do I think of the movie? Do I think the movie is great? Absolutely. Do I think the movie's amazing? Yeah, I think so. I think it's amazing for anyone that's a Marvel fan that that's followed the MCU for the whole run. Like, people like myself, I've followed the MCU since the first Iron Man. So, I mean, for that, like, this movie has a lot that kind of calls back to previous movies and stuff and that sort of thing. So, that's nice. Do I think the movie is a masterpiece? No. Okay, guys, that's it. Thanks for watching. I'm kidding. I need to stop doing that joke so much. But no. I honestly wouldn't consider it a masterpiece. I think it's incredible. I think it does a fantastic job at what it's striving out to do. But I think, unlike Infinity War, there is flaws that actually do drag this movie down from, being pretty much perfect. But I guess to keep it non-spoiler right now, this is where I kind of end my non-spoiler part of the review. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, I give the movie anywhere from an 8 to a 9. I think just how much you like the MCU in general will determine where in between that score you put it. I'll probably give my ultimate final score at the end of the video. But I mean, as far as just getting it quick and out of the way, right now I'd probably put it in between an 8 and a 9 out of 10. So, like, if you haven't seen the movie, well, first off, what rock have you been living under? But secondly, go watch the movie, like, now. Alright, well, thanks. Alright. With that out of the way, I can't really talk any further of the movie without spoilers, so spoiler warning for anyone who hasn't seen it. And I mean it, if you haven't seen it yet, just go see it. Come back to the video. Alright, spoiler warning. 3, 2, 1. Okay. I guess we can talk about the first problem, and I think it's the most glaring one, is there is a pacing problem with the movie. The movie starts out with Tony and Nebula on the Guardian's ship, which is stranded. You know, it's like what the trailer stated, you know, they're out of fuel, food, water, and oxygen's gonna deplete real soon and stuff. Everything seems hopeless for the first 5 minutes. Or not, more like first 3 minutes actually. And then also, before I move on, I have to admit the scene with Tony and Nebula interacting is actually, it's a really cute scene. I actually really like it. The way Tony's teaching Nebula how to do finger football, which that was really nice, and the way how Nebula was shocked when she actually won the game because, you know, based on her lifestyle, she's never really won on anything. So it kind of put a shock to her, and I think it was a really cute moment. I think it was really nice for both characters, and it made it believable that they would have forged kind of a miniature bond while they were on the ship. So, I mean, so that was nice. So, yeah, but after first 3 minutes, Captain Marvel ends up finding them, rescuing them, and bring them back to Avengers HQ, where Tony meets up with the rest of the Avengers. Now, before I move on, I guess I've already talked about what's good about the opening scene. I think the opening scene is great. It definitely starts things off pretty well. Well, I mean, I guess that's not even the full opening scene. The actual opening scene is with Clint and his family, and him witnessing his family disappear and stuff. And that was a really good opening for the movie, as it kind of helps cement why Clint fell down this dark path, like seeing it firsthand. But yeah, but I was referring to the first scene with like big character interaction. So yeah. Um, but I think my only issue with the Tony and Nebula scene is I think it could have gone on a little bit longer. I personally would have preferred it to be like, instead of like 3 to 5 minutes, I would have preferred maybe like 6 to 10 minutes, like somewhere in that range, just to, I feel like maybe just to kind of cement the hopelessness that they're dealing with. I felt like, part of me felt like the scene went by a little too fast, and it's like when you're kind of really feeling the dread of their situation, it kind of like just gets undone pretty fast, because it's like, again, once when Captain Marvel finds them, you know things are going to be okay. So, I mean, yeah, there's that. Um, After they get back to HQ, Tony kind of has like a miniature emotional breakdown, basically stating that, you know, he's angry at like Cap for not being there. He's kind of in this panic base. It's a lot of it's his PTSD kicking in and stuff. And I have to admit, I can't really describe the scene in detail, but I have to admit I really did like the scene. It definitely worked well, and Robbie Downey Jr. definitely delivered the line really well. So yeah. Um yeah, and then after that scene, basically, Tony's unconscious, and the rest of them decide to go take out Thanos. And I must admit, I'm trying to breeze through this a little bit, just because it's like, if I try to summarize this movie, I'd be here all day. Like, it's already 10 minutes in. I haven't even covered the first 15 minutes yet. All right. The next thing that surprised me heavily about this movie is that they killed Thanos off within, like, the first 15 minutes. Like, literally, I was thinking it was going to be this big thing, but nope. Nope. Instead, the Avengers they come in, they ambush him, the stones are gone, Thanos informs them they're gone, Nebula confirms it because she's saying, like, oh, my dad's many things, but a liar isn't one of them. Um, and then literally after that, Thor just decapitates him. And I'm just like, holy moly. And I must admit, I do like the line where when Rocket asks, like, what did you do? And I do love Thor's response when he went, like, I went for the head. Like, that was great. But, I mean, as far as Thanos' death itself, it was shocking, but I definitely, like, it was shocking, it subverted my expectations and that sort of thing, but I definitely think it brought up problems for later in the movie, and I'll cover that in further detail as the video goes along. But I mean, I definitely enjoyed the early half, and again, the subversion was pretty nice because it was kind of it. It did add to the hopelessness, like the idea that you kill Thanos, Thor kills Thanos, but it's like it doesn't make a difference. The stones are gone. It's like that doesn't make a difference. So then you spend the next 20 minutes, the character, it's, and then, oh, before I move on, after they leave the farm, it has the freaking black screen, and it simply goes like in text 5 years later, and I swear, those texts gave me chills. Especially seeing how bleak the world is afterwards, at like the first beginning. Like, you can tell everyone's trying to move on, and a lot of this is where I kind of bring up a minor complaint is I do wish more time was established setting up this world, because to me I felt like it did a really good job at the earlier parts of it, but I feel like once when they introduced like Professor Hulk and that sort of thing, because I think the scenes with Cap, Black Widow, Ant-Man, all those got well, but once when you got to Thor and Hulk and that sort of thing, I felt like it kind of created a tonal confusion, because it actually made it seem like people were moving on like okay in a sense. And I mean, I get it, it's been 5 years, and like, yeah, there's probably plenty of people still sad, but to me, it's kind of like you're the world doesn't seem to be like too like different. Not really. Like, I mean, you have the people kind of depressed. You have those walls that like say the vanished and has all the names on it, and it's like that was pretty chilling. But I just, yeah, before they get into the second act, which is the time traveling act, um, I wish they took a little more time to kind of establish the world and the hardships that it's going through. Because to me, I don't feel like they established that enough. Like, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I felt like to an extent, I think what they could have almost done, and not to tamper with Infinity War, because you know how much I love Infinity War, but I feel like to make the story overall more cohesive, I felt like they actually probably could have had it where in Infinity War they go after Thanos, and then he destroys the stones and they kill him. And then the movie like that, like Thanos' death and all that, and then start Endgame 5 years later. Or if they didn't worry about killing Thanos, I think they could have just started the 5 years later to begin with, like after the opening scene with Hawkeye or Tony. Like, I don't know. I'm just thinking theoretical, because to me, I feel like I'm trying to figure out ways that they could have expanded the world, because at this point, it's like it's a 3 hour long movie. You can't really add stuff. because that would make the movie too long. So you have to think of substitution, like what's necessary to stay there, what isn't, that sort of thing. And I think that's another issue with this, and it's kind of why I addressed the pacing problem. So yeah, you have the first act where this bleak world is set up, but not enough time, in my view, was spent like actually setting up the world, which I feel like is a little bit disappointing. Um, because it's weird. It's like the pacing for the opening scenes are slow, but it doesn't feel like they're building that much because a lot of the earlier scenes are just putting the team back together. And it's like, I mean, I appreciate that, but to me, it's like, I think the time, instead of seeing, like, say, Ant Man time traveling, becoming old, young, baby Ant Man, and that sort of thing, I feel like that time could have been better spent further establishing the world, further, like, because to me, I felt like without that further expansion, it to me it kind of took away some of like the incentive of wanting the main characters to succeed. Because it's like if everything seems like it's going for the most part okay, why would you really care too much? Like, I mean, we still cared. A lot of the characters that we loved disappeared in the snap, like Spider-Man, Black Panther, that sort of thing. But it's like, I mean, I'm trying to think about the world as a whole and not just the characters we follow. I also feel like, I think another minor issue I will discuss. Okay, I'm gonna get through the movie, through the act structure first, and then I'll talk about each plot point and characters individually. Because I feel like I'm really not formatting this right. So, okay. First act, slow, could have done more to establish the world. Second act, the time travel. I overall enjoyed that. I think the Easter eggs were really fun. I think a lot of the fan service, it was fun having it, and I don't think it was like thrown in your face out of nowhere. Unlike another movie I know of, cough cough, The Force Awakens. Sorry, um, I think things were set up well, and it had a lot of good character scenes. I loved the scenes between Black Widow and Hawkeye. I loved the scenes between Steve and Tony. Um, those are the main ones. I love the scene where Tony interacts with his dad, though I definitely admit it probably could have been paced a little bit better. And I think, honestly, the second act actually suffers the opposite issue of the first act. Like, it establishes things well, it makes things work. It's overall entertaining, but while the first act kind of just had things drag, second act kind of goes all over the place. It kind of goes like, oh, you. And this is the problem with a lot of time travel movies. So I try to be fair, but it's like, I feel like they could have done a little bit of adjustments. Because it's like you're getting one character here, then one character there, then a group of characters there and there, and you're kind of moving around all over them scene to scene. And I don't know how you could have better structured that. I think maybe, again, don't take my word for it, I'm not a screenwriter, but I think maybe doing like one character at a time might have helped a little bit. Like, finish an arc where one character gets the stone, then move on to the other, and that sort of thing. But then people would probably say it would be like the first act where it would drag. So, I mean, to an extent, that's something where you're kind of screwed no matter what you do. To an extent, I just feel like maybe the scenes could have been paced better. Um, and I'll get into this a little bit more when I get into the characters, because I feel like some of the character choices kind of drag the scenes a little. So there's that. Um, and and then during the second act with the time travel, so they establish that the time travel, you can't alter things or whatever. So that's there, and I'll discuss that when I get to plot points. However, during 2014. They go to 2014 to get the Power and Soul Stone. During that process, um, old Nebula or present Nebula sinks in with young 2014 Nebula, and then 2014 Thanos discovers what the Avengers are up to and that sort of thing. And yeah, I'm really oversimplifying it, but I'm trying to do that just for the sake of consistency. So then Thanos goes into the future after they do the snap to bring everyone back. And then it leads to this epic final battle where Cap, Iron Man, Thor fight Thanos. And then after all seems lost, all the new characters and like all the sorcerers and the Asgardians and the what else? What am I trying to think of? The Ravengers, the oh my gosh, the Wakandans, like all of them come in to fight Thanos and his army. And this is where the movie really picks up. Like, honestly, yeah, without a doubt, the third act is the best act of the movie. Without a doubt. And I mean, to an extent, that's to be expected. But I mean, unlike Infinity War, where I feel like Infinity War was a lot more consistent out of the blue, like across the board. Like, you know, first act was great, second act was great, third act was great. I felt like this one, the gap of quality was a little more noticeable. Like, first and second act were pretty good. Not great, but pretty good. But then the third act is, like, incredible. And I feel like definitely the third act is kind of, like, one of the main things that builds this movie up and kind of gives it a memorable feeling. So, there's that. So, rest assured, sum up the movie. Big fight happens, big battle happens. Iron Man, Thanos, oh my gosh, I'm trying to explain this. Iron Man gets the like Infinity Stones when Thanos is about to snap the gauntlet. Um, Iron Man steals the stones, like he sneaks them onto his nanotech armor, and then after that, Iron Man snaps his fingers. Um, Thanos and his army dies, and then Iron Man ends up dying because of the overwhelming power of the stones. So then Iron Man has a big funeral and all that, and that sort of thing. And after that, characters mend, Captain America retires, all that sort of stuff. Like I said, I'm trying to be simplistic so I can actually move on to each character individually. So yeah, that's overall the plot. So yeah, okay. So I guess I can discuss things individually now. So first, I guess the first thing I could get into is the time travel. I think the time travel overall was handled alright. I don't think it was particularly amazing, but I think it worked for what they were trying to establish. Because I think this is the problem you're going to run into no matter what with time travel. You're opening Pandora's box. You're unlocking this brand new possibility that was never accessible before, and now you're saying, hey, this is what you can now do this. What are the rules? How did this apply? And I think it was handled well. I actually I don't know how I completely feel about the idea that going back in time, you're not actually going back in time, you're going to the past of an alternate timeline. Basically the timeline, like, it plays out exactly the same. It's just the idea that it's mostly there just to emphasize that if you go back and screw something up and change something in the past, it doesn't affect the present. And I think that's fine. Like, for the most part, I think it's a good idea in hindsight. Though I think the only problem with it is a lack of consequence from the changes. Like, I think as a result of that action, of that decision, it takes away some of the stakes that could have been set up in the second act. Like the fear of changing something, the fear of messing something up. Because I think what was kind of funny about it is, despite the fact that they were like emphasizing you can't change things, you can't do that sort of thing, they kind of set it up like you wouldn't want anything to really change that much, anyways, until you get to a third act. At which point they kind of go just screw it. But I mean, you have things like Thor not telling his mom about the future. You have things like that, and Cap fighting each other and being like worried about hurting him when it's like, why are you worried about hurting him? He's not you. Okay, he is him, but not like him, not his past self. So, or you get what I mean. I mean, it's like what you do to young Captain America doesn't affect current Captain America, that sort of thing. So to me, it's like doing that doesn't affect things that much. I think in the way they set up like Loki escaping with the Tesseract in this alternate timeline, so does that imply Loki's alive? Does that imply they're going to make like because I heard they're going to make a Loki show. Is it going to be like alternate timeline Loki since main timeline Loki's dead? Um, I don't know. But I mean, I think because of it, there was a lack of consequence. I think maybe something they could have done is maybe like when you change the timeline, it doesn't, or like when you make changes in when you time travel, maybe it's like the events don't actually affect you up until the present that you return to. So like it doesn't change anything up until then, or maybe have something else like the memories travel with you. So like Captain America would in the future remember fighting himself. Or like say if future Iron Man beat up past Captain America, present Captain America once when he returns to the future would remember that and be like, seriously man, you had to beat me up like that or something like that. I don't know. I'm just rambling. Um it's nitpicking more or less. I just think the time travel could have had more consequence, but other than that it was okay. Now I guess I can talk about each character individually. And some I'm going to state how much I love, others not so much. So, easily, without a doubt, um, so I'll state the characters that I think are great, the characters that I think are okay, and the characters that I have a lot of problems with. So, characters I think are great or without a doubt Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow, and Hawkeye. Those are the four mains that I consider. Oh, and Nebula. Nebula. Those five characters, in my view, make up the heart and soul of this movie. To me, these five are without a doubt the best characters of the movie. Now, the characters that I think are okay, meaning they're good, but they have minor flaws that, like, I would have preferred them not dealing with. So that probably would have come down to say, um, probably just Thor. Thor would probably be the only one I can think of on that end. Um, yeah, probably that's it. Like, there's a lot of characters that are more or less side characters, and I don't want to worry about them. So I mean, there's Thor, and I don't know. I think that's about it. I think a lot. Um, I guess you could say Professor Hulk. Oh, another character I'd say is downright good is Ant Man. Ant Man actually, Avengers Endgame probably has. It's probably Ant Man's best like performance and role and that sort of thing. I think it bounces really well. So yeah, forgot to mention that. Um, yeah, but probably just Thor and like Professor Hulk. Though Professor Hulk almost kind of comes into areas where I have problems with, so I'll explain that later. But characters I have problems with. It's mostly going to come down to two, more or less, and that is Captain Marvel and Thanos. So I guess I'll list them in order. So I mean, like Tony Stark, love his characterization, love the fact that he has a kid. I love all of that. That was great. Pretty much to me, his character development and that sort of thing was handled pretty much perfectly. Same goes with Captain America. I think he was handled exactly the way that could have worked out. Um, and overall, that was really good. I love his ending as well, where he stays behind in the time travel to get a life with Peggy and retire. And I think that was a great scene, especially with him passing the mantle to Falcon, which personally I think Bucky would have been the better choice. But still, I think it was a good decision either way. Um, and then yeah, there's that. So, oh, and then Black Widow's death was Black Widow was actually really good as a character. Her death was really good, though. I admit, I think it deserved its own track. I don't think they should have reused the track from Gamora's death, but that's just me. And then Hawkeye was actually a really good character, and I really sympathized with him a lot in this movie. So overall, I think he was actually one of the best characters in the movie. And the way he had to deal with that guilt, which I think my only issue with that would have been maybe just see a little more of it, but like what he did as Ronin, because he's actually not really Ronin for that long. So to me, it's kind of like that was a little like upsetting, but not too bad. Now I'll move on to mid-tier characters, or the characters I think were okay but had issues. Thor, I overall liked. Everyone's having this weird thing about having a problem with Fat Thor and how they used him as just comedic relief, and I think my thoughts on it are pretty simple. I knew what the directors were intending with that, the idea of having this broken dude, like Thor being completely broken down and just kind of falling into being kind of this hermit like dude. And I mean, it actually makes sense. Like, I mean, this is a guy who's not used to losing like this. And the fact that he literally has nothing left, it basically comes with that saying of Infinity War where he pretty much jinxes himself when he goes, like, after he states that vengeance is the main thing that carries him now, he states, well, if I'm wrong about beating Thanos, what more could I lose? Well, you lost half the population and half your people and all that sort of stuff. Um, but yeah, you have that. And then, so, I mean, it made sense. The setup was good, and the redemption was a good payoff. I think my only problem with it, and people definitely brought it up, is I do think they leaned too much on the comedic side of it. Like, I didn't mind them being comedic about it at the beginning. To me, that worked. But I felt like it dragged a little too long. I think they definitely... I think the way they were using that as comic relief overstayed its welcome. Because to me, it's like... I feel like after they did the time travel, after they reached that point, that's when he should have, like, at least been gradually building himself back up. Like, you could have it where, and I feel like you could just do minor alterations to make things play out the same without damaging his character as much. Like, say he's, like, he's scared at first, Rocket gives him the pet talk, and they're actually both willing to do it. And then maybe on his way, he bumps into his mom, and then they have the conversation while Rocket's going like, all right, fine, I'll handle it myself, or whatever. That sort of thing. And to me, I feel like that would have equally worked fine without, and it wouldn't have damaged his character as much. I will say Professor Hulk as well. His scene with, like, basically him reconciling with Hulk and merging. I think there's only two problems with that. First, I wish we got to see that. And then my second problem is that they completely destroy the Hulk personality. The Hulk personality is gone. It's just Banner. It's just Banner in the Hulk body, and not even the full Hulk body. It's smaller. Like, he's a smaller, weaker Hulk. And I mean, I think what they could have done more was maybe, like, merge the personalities more with the body and that sort of thing. So have it, like, make it where he's really smart. The personality works. They're smart. They know what they're doing and stuff, but maybe have it where, say they're doing an experiment, things aren't working that well, they get subjected to anger or something, or just have a moment where there's a huge anger burst out, like either like when Black Widow dies, or when Hulk's like Bruce/Hulk sees Thanos again, like that sort of thing. I feel like that would have set up things a little bit better. Now characters I downright dislike, or not dislike, but felt like they were a letdown. First one is without a doubt Captain Marvel. I was really hoping that they would have improved her characterization a lot in this movie from her solo outing in, Captain Marvel from this year earlier. Unfortunately, they don't. Unfortunately, they did not. She's still as boring as ever. Because pretty much she's as interesting as a cutout board. She's as interesting as the poster, let's just say that. Not the movie poster, but the poster of her. Um, Pretty much. It's like, yeah, looks cool, all that sort of stuff, but there's nothing to her. And also, I have a problem with the fact that they really overdid, like, she's barely in the movie. And I mean, by technicality, given her how bad her characterization is, that's probably a good thing. But to me, it's like I felt like they could have done more to actually try to make her character better. Maybe give her a chance to be humble, like maybe partake in the time heist or something. But they don't do any of that. And on top of that, Captain Marvel does like a save twice in this movie, and I didn't mind it the first time. Like her finding Tony and Nebula and saving them on the ship, that worked. That was fine. But I think the part where at the ending, Thanos' ship is bombarding the heroes, everything's hopeless, and then Captain Marvel comes out of nowhere and literally just breaks through the ship like it's nothing. Like literally, it's like the ending of the Captain Marvel solo outing all over again. And I mean, I didn't care too much with that because I was thinking, okay, it's just the Kree. It's not like it's Thanos, but now it's freaking Thanos' ship. That's his personal ship. And she just breaks through it like it's nothing. And then after that, considering how much she can get through, to me, after she shows up, it lowers the stakes a lot. Because it's like, what are you going to do at that point? It's like literally the tide is completely turned in a sense. And I admit the only thing I'm happy about is thank goodness Captain Marvel was not the one to beat Thanos. I swear, if they freaking did that, I actually would have been really irritated. So thank goodness. In fact, they almost purposely kind of tease you to be scared of that. But thankfully, that didn't happen. But yeah, I feel like, with her being in the poster pretty big and all that, to me, it's like, why didn't they just do more with her characterization? I felt like they could have actually expanded her character in a meaningful way, and they didn't. It's like, because to me, it's like Captain Marvel has potential as a character. I think she does. Like, every character to me has a lot of characters have a rough start. So to me, it's like that. It was okay that her solo outing wasn't great for her. Because to me, I was thinking at least she would have an opportunity to grow in Endgame, but nope, she doesn't. So, I mean, yeah, that sucks. And now I'm going to be reaching my final point before, just talking about minor stuff and wrapping up the review. Thanos. Now, before I get into that, I guess I can state, what were the things about Thanos in Infinity War that I loved so much? Well, one, he was a big intimidating threat. B, he actually had real character reactions, real emotions and that sort of thing. C, the fact that while his plan is heavily flawed and it's when really looking into it, it doesn't make much sense. It makes sense why he thinks that way. The plan doesn't really make sense, but the way he thinks does, considering all he went through. And then finally, the sympathy, which I think was the biggest thing about him. You could sympathize with him. You actually understood why he was doing what he was doing. And no matter what, Thanos was committed to his beliefs in Infinity War. And it gave him a sense of humble. Like, he was actually pretty humble within that movie, despite viewing himself as the only one with the will to act. He didn't kill really many of the heroes. Like, the only people he killed in that entire movie was Heimdall, Loki, Gamora, and Vision. He only kills 4 characters. And arguably, it's unfair to even count Gamora and Vision because he only killed them because he needed the stones from them. The only people he kills sadistically is Heimdall and Loki. And yeah, it's an evil act. It definitely shows his ruthlessness. But I mean, it showed also that he, especially after Gamora's death, because I feel like that was a big turning point of his character, he was willing to become a lot more humble. He didn't kill any of the heroes. In fact, the only hero he was willing to kill in that movie was Iron Man, and that's only because he saw Iron Man as a significant threat. And honestly, something I theorized throughout Infinity War that I wish Endgame covered a little is I personally think that was because Thanos saw a little bit of himself in Iron Man. Like, Iron Man was the only other one willing to do whatever it took and to have the will to act upon the goals that they have. And to me, it made the characterization really good. But yeah, like, it set up well. It was really good and all that, and then Endgame comes, and they kill Thanos off in the first 5 minutes, which frankly, initially, I didn't mind. It wasn't that big of a deal if the follow-up was worth it, because I knew we would see more of Thanos later on. So I knew either he was faking his death, or they were going to do something else, which now I know it's time travel, and they bring the 2014 Thanos. And this is where the problem stems in, because they just turned 2014 Thanos. There's a couple of issues with that. Firstly, he's not as interesting. You're getting a Thanos that, well, first off, first problem is that he is nerfed from Infinity War Thanos, obviously, because he doesn't have the gauntlet. Which, I mean, that part is actually understandable. I will give credit, that is actually understandable, and it's not that big of a deal. Because, I mean, if the Avengers were going against Thanos with all 6 Infinity Stones, yeah, that'd be pretty much impossible to win. You know, I said it even in my scenario where I would want present Thanos to live, I still confess that the stones would have to be destroyed, or at least most of them. Like, I think an idea I had was have it where the only stone that survived would have been, like, the Soul Stone. And have it where the snap victims were trapped in there or something, and they had to find a way to, you know, bring them back, like maybe, yeah, do another snap or something along those lines. I don't know. But I mean, back to Thanos, the problems I don't like, one, you have a Thanos that's not as interesting, because again, he hasn't gone through the things that Infinity War Thanos got through. He didn't experience any of that, and it kind of, I'm not gonna lie, it kind of undermines the character development he did go through in Infinity War, because it's like, what's the point? It's like, it's not like it plays any role in the story anymore. At least if it played a role in the story, then, you know, it would have mattered. But now, unfortunately, that development for Thanos exists for no one else but the audience. And that's kind of the thing that sucks about it. And then on top of that, not only taking away the lack of being as interesting and the fact that he has none of the stones or anything like that, they completely mistoss his motivations. He goes from this, ruthless and, pretty much this ruthless and higher powered being who views himself as doing the right thing and truly believes that he's trying to help life out, like trying to make things better for people. Even if it's not true, he at least thinks he is. And you replace them with this villain that, it's like he thinks, oh, universe isn't grateful. People are, like, just because, like, 8 people are willing to travel back in time to try to undo things, like, now this calls upon me destroying the entire universe and rebuilding it. Like, to me, that, like, in making a new universe, like, to me, that just felt like a toss-up of Thanos' original motivation, and it takes away much of the sympathy that he had. Actually, not much. Pretty much all of it. Really, I'm not going to lie, the problem with Endgame is that the only major trait about Thanos that stays is his intimidation factor. And I know people are going to argue about it. I know a lot of people say about, oh, it's showing Thanos from the hero's perspective and how bad he is and blah, blah, blah. But you don't change a character's motivation through perspective. That's not the same thing. Changing the perspective is not the same as the motivation. If Thanos kept his original motivation intact and the Avengers just helped highlight the darker sides of it, then then it would have made sense. It would have worked. Maybe you could even show the darker side of a younger Thanos by having it where it downright shows the death and destruction that it took for him to get to the point that he was in Infinity War. That would have been another thing that could have worked, because to me, having a 2014 past Thanos in it of itself wasn't bad. What the problem with it was is that they didn't expand the character at all through it. And not only did they not expand it, but due to the time travel factor with him being a younger Thanos, it's a character regression. There's no expansion of the character. There's no... basically, in other words, I haven't learned a single thing about Thanos that I didn't already know. Other than the fact that he was willing to kill the entire universe just because a few people wanted to undo what he did. And the main thing is people would want to argue about this. They want to say, oh, he's not a generic bad guy. Like, he actually is interesting. And I wouldn't go so far as to call him generic. I mean, like I said, he carries a good stage presence. He's like Empire Darth Vader in that sense. But I think where the problem comes into play is that you're getting a Thanos that literally has, like... You literally have a Thanos whose only defined characteristics is being ruthless and just, this arrogant dude of overcoming the heroes and that sort of thing. And it's like, what it comes down to me, and this is the thing I will probably forever use to shoot down that argument of people saying, no, he's still an interesting villain, is I would say, can you call Thanos a fantastic villain in Endgame by itself? If you did not see Infinity War, if you knew nothing about his character in Infinity War, would you be able to say that he was a great villain in this movie by itself? Personally, I don't think so. I think Thanos was probably the biggest letdown in this movie, and it's a shame because I personally think it shouldn't have been. I think there were many routes they could have taken his character. I think they could have had it where older Thanos survived and, saw the Avengers bring everyone back, and he could be angered by it. He could exempt that anger as far as going, like, really? After everything I've been through, sacrificing my own daughter, dedicating thousands of years into trying to bring the universe back to balance, and you just undo it? Yeah. Screw you guys, I'm gonna kill you. And he could stay true to his motivations. He doesn't have to go like... I'm gonna kill the whole universe. And even if you wanted to do that, the whole idea of killing the whole universe, it would have made more sense for an older Thanos to come to that conclusion, a present timeline Thanos, because again, he's been through everything, he's witnessed everything. And at least you could have that be an irrational emotional response, being like, really, he could be pissed and be like, all right, I see how it is, like that sort of thing. While I'm not gonna lie, personally, I probably would have just had it where Thanos could have just said something like, the only mistake I suppose I made was erasing the wrong half. That way, to me, it actually would have, to me, doing something like that would have actually added to the stakes, because we all know the new heroes are coming back. We all know that, but we don't know with all the OG ones left. We don't know if they could get snapped and that sort of thing. That actually, to me, would have added the stakes of the third act. Because when he says, I'm just going to kill everyone, I'm like, you're not going to succeed. I know for a fact you're not. So, there's that. And then, on top of that, I feel like, yeah, they could have done that. They could have had an older Thanos have a change of heart. I felt like there was room for a redemption arc. I almost felt like something they could do, and I'll probably make a separate video on it, but something I was thinking about they could have done is have, like, older Thanos, like, present Thanos survive and actually have, like, a talk with his past self. And just explain things and that sort of thing. To me, I think it would have been a good full circle and been able to show at the same time both Thanos' character strengths as well as weaknesses. But yeah, there's that. And personally, I think if they had to stick with 2014 Thanos, if they absolutely felt like they needed to have that by itself without a present timeline Thanos or anything like that, then to me, if they were going to do that, they needed to at least expand his character in a way that helped solidify further knowledge of him as a character. That actually helped solidify him. Instead of having Gamora and Nebula fighting in that one scene on their own, have Thanos fighting with them. Show that maybe despite how hard he is on them, that he does care about them in a sense, or at least you could theorize it. You could almost make it kind of like a Fletcher from Whiplash situation where, he has character moments where he really treats them harshly, but he also has sympathetic moments with them. And you could debate to yourself, does he actually care about his children outside of Gamora? Because Gamora, we know he does. You could have scenes like that. Because I won't lie, the one scene I actually did like with Thanos was present timeline Thanos right before he died, when he said to Nebula, "Thank you, daughter. Perhaps I treated you too harshly," after she said that Thanos wasn't a liar. Because Thanos was truly actually grateful that she was willing to be truthful about him. To me, that actually helped expand his character, because it did set up, alright, Thanos is actually humble enough where, he will acknowledge that. And to me, the fact that he actually seemed like he felt regret of how harshly he treated Nebula, to me, was a good character moment. I felt like they could have solidified that even further with the time travel. Because it actually seemed like that. It seemed like Thanos was actually developing a relationship with Nebula even more than Gamora within this alternate timeline. And to me, that could have been a good character moment, a moment of character expansion. And they didn't do it. That's what I mean. It's like the main problem with this Thanos in the movie is that there not only is there nothing to expand on, but again, they just regress him with, again, like they can regress his character if they at least substitute it with something else of good substance, but they didn't. Again, to me, I felt like it would have been nice to have a different angle of learning about his character, the way he would have reacted differently with the knowledge that he knows. And I mean, to an extent they do it, but it's in a really, it's in a predictable direction that doesn't really solidify him as a character. It just gives him the most diabolical type stuff to give the heroes a huge incentive to beat him. But overall, I need to like wrap up this video. We're almost at an hour, and I can't keep talking about it. Just not because I don't want to. It's just I'm running out of things to talk about, and my throat's starting to hurt. But overall, what do I think of this movie? I think it's really great. I think it delivers for the most part. I think it delivers on what it set out to do, which was to give a satisfying conclusion for all these characters that we followed for over 10 years, our main heroes, our original 6, I guess you could say. And overall, it gives them a really satisfying conclusion. I love that Cap retires, Iron Man's death, while sad, was fitting for his character. Thor joining the Guardians is really good. Who knows what occurs with Hulk. Hawkeye will probably retire and Black Widow's dead, which really does make me curious about what our solar film will be on. Probably a prequel. But overall, the movie was really good. It was great. It was, in many ways, probably even amazing. But it's not the masterpiece that I wanted it to be. But, yeah, like, to me, it's not the masterpiece I wanted it to be, but it was the satisfying conclusion I was hoping for. It delivered on the areas that I was hoping the most it would. It succeeded at what it was striving out to do. Like I said, there were personal things I didn't like. There were personal things I didn't enjoy. And there was actual things wrong with the movie that to me held it back. But it was a worthwhile experience. And I'd say it definitely was probably the second best movie experience I've had in the theater. With number 1 being Infinity War. And I think that comes down to the fact that it's kind of clear with the way I've been describing it. I don't like this movie as much as Infinity War. I don't think it's as good as Infinity War. But I still think it's really great in its own right. I think the merits that it accomplished are worthwhile and should be commended and forever remembered. The fact that they made a 3-hour movie, and honestly, I'm not going to lie, in a lot of parts it didn't even feel like 3 hours. Like, the movie overall, like, there were a lot of moments, yeah, there were some moments where I was kind of like, okay, this is dragging on, but other moments I was like, dang, like, this is a full hour of, like, a final battle, and it doesn't even feel like it. And that overall kind of solidifies my thoughts. If I have to rate it a scale of 1 to 10, I think as a movie by itself, I think it's an 8. I think it's great. I think it sets up, I think it does things well. But I don't think it's like the ultimate masterpiece movie. I feel like if you haven't seen previous MCU movies, if you haven't followed the MCU since the beginning, you're not going to appreciate the film as much. Even if you've seen Infinity War. I feel like unless you're one of those people who have seen almost every single Marvel movie, you're not going to appreciate it as much. For those people, for those casual audiences, I could say, it's an 8 out of 10. Great movie. Go watch it. Bring your kids. For the people that are hardcore Marvel fans, like myself, the people that have followed this franchise for over 10 years, the people that these movies have made up much of their childhood, including my own, it's a 9 out of 10. It's an incredible movie. It delivers a satisfying conclusion to this franchise, and it makes the journey worth it. This was something that, I'm not going to lie. Like I said, I was shocked and amazed just how great how nostalgic and how crazy it was just to see the Avengers for the first time, see them all come together for the first time back in 2012. and I could have never even hoped back then to see what I saw now. And it is a magical experience in that sense. And I think the movie should be remembered. I hope it's remembered. I hope, well, to pull a Thanos line, I hope they remember you. Remember the movie. And I think the Russo brothers deserve a huge accommodation. I think the cast, Chris Evans, Robbie Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, Mark Ruffalo, all of them, Scarlett Johansson, all of them. Like, I think they all deserve to be commended because they gave a really satisfying and great movie experience. And honestly, I'm not going to lie, I probably will never be able to get as invested in the... Oh my gosh, I can't speak. I'm probably never going to be as invested in the MCU after this point. I'm still looking forward to Spider-Man Far From Home, just because Spider-Man's one of my favorite Marvel characters. But I feel like as far as the MCU as a whole, that 10-year build-up, even if they do like Galactus or Doctor Doom or any of them, even if they put in the X-Men and all that, and don't get me wrong, I'm going to be excited for those stuff. I'm going to be seeing the movie still. I'm going to be enjoying all that. But I don't think anything is ever going to take the place of the 10-year build-up that I lived through from my childhood to now being a young adult. And it's nothing short of incredible. So yeah, 9 out of 10, guys. Fantastic movie for all MCU fans. If you haven't seen it yet, well, pretty much anyone that's an MCU fan has already seen it. At least I hope. Unless you're in a coma or they're like insanely poor or something. Like, unless that's the case, like, pretty much most people have already seen it. But if that's the case, go see it again. And to those who haven't seen it, well, what the freak are you listening to my review for? Get up and watch the movie. But yeah, guys, that's about it. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. If you've made it this long, I really appreciate it. It's overall, like I said, it's been great. I'm now sitting at like 700 something subscribers, and it's fantastic. I cannot say in words how amazed I am and how grateful I am for this. I'm going to try to get video content out a bit more often. I can't make any promises, but I'm going to try to get more stuff out. I'm probably going to make a video about Halo Infinite. I need to do that. Something on Battlefield 5 is long overdue. Way long. At this point, I can't even do a review anymore. I'm probably just going to have to do a discussion video. And I'll probably make videos on other games, and I don't know, I might do more of these movie podcasts, though. Hopefully not as long. Hopefully they're only like a third this length. But, I mean, if you guys enjoyed this, please let me know. Let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you thought of the movie, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys, and until then, this is King Orange, and I will see you next time. Peace out, guys.